Tonight, we're going to talk about the Michael movie, which is still overperforming at the box office currently. It's connecting with audiences, it's connecting with the fan base. It's not slowing down. At this point, it's over $500 million and still going strong in its third week in the theater. But of course, there are some things that were not mentioned in the Michael movie. Specifically, did Michael Jackson hire the mob to protect his own interest or his life? We're going to find that out today in this week's live stream of the Movie Insurrectionist. Welcome to this week's live stream of the Movie Insurrectionist. I am your host, Rashad, and welcome to our channel. Tonight, the topic is Michael Jackson and how he hired the mob to protect his interests during the height of his career. We all have heard the stories of how Sammy Davis Jr. was connected to the mob because of his connection to Frank Sinatra, but the same connections can be contributed to Michael Jackson. Within the Michael movie, there was no mention of the Jackson family's tie to the mob. We did see Don King, of course, who was connected to the Victory Tour as the promoter, which was the last tour that the Jacksons did together while they were on tour. There were some dealings with the mafia that made the inner workings of the finances quite unusual. So today, we are going to cover in this live stream of the Movie Insurrectionist the story of how the mob worked for Michael Jackson. Allegedly, and I say allegedly for things I cannot prove, allegedly, the Jackson family had ties to the mob going back to the 1960s during their ascension to fame in the Chicago area. They say they are from Gary, Indiana, which is where they are from. But for those of you who are from Gary or Chicago, when you say Gary, you're basically speaking about the Chicago area. Gary is only about, I think, 60 miles outside of Chicago. So for those of you living in Los Angeles, it's like driving to the IE. For people that are living in Houston, it's like driving out to Katy. So when people say Gary, they're pretty much talking about Chicago. And during the 1960s, allegedly, in the Chicago area, Joe Jackson took his boys, who would become the Jackson 5, you see here in the picture. There are 6 of them because one of them was actually an adopted son of the Jacksons. I believe the drummer was an adopted son of the Jacksons that went along, his neighbor that went along with the Jacksons to be their drummer. But the Jackson 5 in the 1960s, they worked allegedly in mob-owned venues within the Chicago area. For those of you who may have forgot, Chicago is the city of Al Capone. It is a mob city just like New York, like Philadelphia, Chicago, New Jersey, and where I'm from, Los Angeles. And Chicago, of course, with its history of organized crime, is no different. But some of the venues that Joe Jackson would book for his boys were allegedly mob-owned establishments, and I couldn't find any proof to whether this was actually true. It's just lore about the Jackson family, so I won't focus at all on this period. However, what isn't lore is their connection to this man. Handsome and sprightly young fellow, isn't he? This is Norby Wathers. Norby Wathers during the 1970s and 80s was a significant music and sports agent who managed much of the high-profile black talent in the music industry. His client list ranged from people such as Marvin Gaye to Luther Vandross, Rick James, Curtis Blow, and Sugar Hill Gang, just to name a few. However, we're focusing today on his association with the Jacksons. So for this live stream, we're going to tell the story of how Michael Jackson hired the mob. Now, to start this story, we must go back to the beginning. The year is 1980. Norby Wathers attempted to represent the Jacksons as his client through his agency, Norby Wathers Agency, during that year. However, the Jacksons had a manager, Ron Weisner, so they were uninterested in working with Norby Wathers. You gotta remember, during this time in the early 80s, the Jackson Five, all the Jackson boys, Jackie, Jermaine, Tito, Marlon, Randy, and of course Michael, they were venturing off and finding representation for themselves. So at this point, Joe wasn't their manager anymore. They still were doing business with Joe, but Joe wasn't their manager anymore, their father. And their father was Ron Weisner. But the gentleman we're looking at right here, Norby Wathers, he was connected to the Columbo crime family. And being connected to the Columbo crime family, Norby reportedly sent the mob to intimidate their then manager, Ron Weisner, to share his profits with him as their booking agent. The Jacksons didn't want Norby Walter as their manager, so Norby Wathers sent in a representative of the Columbo crime family to intimidate their then agent, Ron Weisner, to share his profits with him as their booking agent. And who was the man they actually sent? You may notice this person if you watch a lot of YouTube, but let me show you who it is. This gentleman right here to the left. If you watch a significant amount of YouTube, you've probably seen this man. This is Michale Franczese. Hope I'm saying his name correctly. Michale Franczese, former mob boss of the Columbo crime family in New York and known associate of Norby Wathers. I say associate because Norby Wathers, which I'm sure wasn't his real name, was Jewish. And if you know anything about the history of the Italian mafia in the United States, Jews often work with the Italian mob. This would include individuals such as Meyer Lansky, who was an associate of Murder Inc. after the formation of the commission in the 1930s. And in Chicago, there was Frank Lefty Rosenthal, who was the basis of that simpish Robert De Niro character, Sam H. Rothstein, in the movie Casino, which I did a review on this channel. And if you haven't checked it out, what in the hell is the matter with you? Anyways, Norby Wathers seems to have a similar relationship with the Columbo family. But listen to what Michale Franczese said about him and how it affected the Jacksons. Want to play this? Fair use.
Stop, you're talking like a clown right now.
Yeah, the singer, Michael Jackson. Let me clarify this. You know, there was some truth to that in a way, I guess, by inference, but let me tell you what really happened. Norby Wathers, everybody knows that name. He was at one time the premier agent for black talent in the business. I mean, he represented everybody. Dionne Warwick, the Spinners, Marvin Gaye, Michael J. You name it, he had them, right? And you know, I know Norby just about all.
Never actually represented Michael Jackson. Michael Jackson didn't want to have anything to do with them because he knew that Norby was had some questionable tactics how he did business. But okay, Mike, go ahead.
My life, and I'm not going to get into the whole Norby Wathers thing again. Well, what happened, Norby had first digs on the 1984 Victory Tour with Michael Jackson. How? Because we knew Joe Jackson, the father. And Norby was fairly tight with him. I had met him once or twice. So the father wanted Norby to do the tour. Joe Jackson did. However,
there's no evidence that Joe Jackson was actually close with Norby, but Mike says that. Don King actually had a better relationship with Norby Wathers, not Michael Jackson, but Go ahead. Keep on telling the story.
Michael didn't want that. Michael didn't get along with his father. It's not that he didn't get along with Norby. He didn't get along with his father, and I think he was just bucking heads with him, and anything his dad wanted, he didn't want to do. So the tour was
And of course, all roads leads to blaming Joe, but keep on
going to another promoter. So Norby calls me. This is how Norby used us all the time. Whatever we can help him out, whatever, he used our name, he used my father. He capitalized tremendously on the Franczese name, right? And he didn't pay a lot of money like people believe. He didn't pay. And me, I let Norby go because I love to get tickets from him. That's it, Norby, I need tickets for this concert.
Keep in mind what Michael Franczese just said. I didn't get paid. I didn't make any money off of this. Who flies all the way from New York to Los Angeles to low-key intimidate big shots in the music industry unless there's something in it for you? I know that Norby was a friend of his father's, like he said, and he called him Uncle Norby, but keep in mind what he said, because I'm going to show you guys a little bit later on after he talks some of the holes in the story that he's presenting right here. Go ahead.
Liked him. That was it. So I didn't shake him down for money like some people said. Never took a dime off of Norby. Not one dime. Anyway, so he calls me up. Michael, we're going to lose the tour. Okay, what do you want me to do, Norby? Well, this is the promoter that's involved. I think it was also Michael's manager that I had to visit at the time. It was two people. I said, all right, let me go pay them a visit. I'll straighten it out. So I fly out to California, and I go to the offices of both the promoter, and this all came out at the trial, by the way. The Norby Wathers trial, the famous trial that everybody talks about, that Norby didn't do any time on. But anyway, and I go visit him. And I said, look, Norby had this tour first. Well, Michael doesn't want it, and so on and so forth. I said, but you're not hearing what I said. I said, Norby had the tour first, and he's going to keep it. Now, if you want to work something out where the two of you get involved in a certain way, you whack up some money, I don't care how you do it, but Norby's not losing the tour, and I hope you understand what I'm saying. Now, I didn't threaten the guy. I didn't meet with Michael Jackson. It was his manager and his promoter at the time.
That's Frank Dileo, Michael's manager, and I'm going to talk more about him a little bit later. Very important person in the history of Michael Jackson. You may recognize him from another movie. I'm not going to mention what movie that is right now. I'm just going to show you. But this was Michael Jackson's manager, Frank Dileo.
And I didn't go in there and put a gun to his head and say, hey, this is what's going to happen. But, sometimes in life, if you know how to use your presence, like he knew who I was, he got his advance notice on me. He knew who I was. And he knew that whatever I told him, I was ready to back up. So basically what I said to him is, there's going to be a tour with Norby or there's not going to be a tour. You guys got to work this out.
You're not threatening Michael Jackson. I didn't put a gun to your head, but you told his manager in a very calm voice, well, listen, if you guys show up and this has got to be a deal for Norby. If Norby doesn't get his part, it's not going to be a tour. Well, I don't want to do business with Norby. No, you're not understanding. If Norby doesn't get his part, there's not going to be a tour. Sounds like a threat to me. That sounds like an intimidation tactic to me, because last time I checked, a person has the right to do business who they want to do business with. If I create a restaurant and I want to do business with someone and then I decide to buy them out, that person's no longer has shares and stakes in that restaurant. I kicked them out. They don't have any stake, and they can't tell me, well, if you don't allow me to keep this restaurant with you, then I'm going to shut this restaurant down. Well, what are you going to do about it? Don't worry about that. I'm just going to shut it down. It's not going to this restaurant won't exist anymore. So based on what he's saying right here, that in itself sounds like a threat. That right there sounds like an act of intimidation. Not an overt threat, but a low-key indirect threat. But he's saying he didn't threaten Michael Jackson, but yet he's telling his manager, if you don't work with my guy, then I'm going to go ahead and get this whole thing shut down. There won't be any tour. Why are you going to do that? We're not doing anything illegal. Well, don't worry about it. We're going to get it shut down. You threatened my client? I didn't say that, but we're going to get it shut down. Sounds like some Godfather type ish, but let's continue.
I don't care how you do. I'm not going to make the deal right now. You and Norby are going to work this out. Whatever way you do, you do. But he's going to be part of the tour, and I hope you understand that. And he got the message. No other words had to go back and forth. It wasn't a long meeting. It was fairly brief. And I said to him when I finished, I said, look, we appreciate this, and any way that I can help you out in the future, I'll do it. You know what? There's an old saying, you catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. Sometimes you don't want to go in there guns loaded. You
catch more flies with honey than you do with vinegar. So that's honey. So you come in and you basically tell someone that my guy is going to be a part of this. I know you don't want him to be a part of this, but he's going to be a part of this. Well, I can do business what I want to do business with. Now you understand, he's going to be a part of this. If he's not a part of this, then this whole entire tour is being shut down. You got that? It's going to be shut down. Well, how are you going to shut it down? Don't worry about that, but we're going to shut it down. This tour is not going to happen if he's not getting his cut. But I don't want him to be a part of this. It sounds like to me that you're threatening me. No, I'm not threatening you, but I'm just telling you that if he doesn't get his cut, if he's not a part of this, then this whole entire tour is not going to happen. What are you going to do? You're going to break Michael Jackson's legs? I didn't say that, but it's not going to happen. Sounds like a threat to me. Nothing sweet about that. If a man comes to me and I'm having a business deal with someone that I don't want to have a deal with, and I decide that I'm severing ties with him, and he sends in a representative to tell me that he's going to be a part of this deal, or otherwise my business is going to crumble, that sounds like a threat. What do you plan on doing? And on top of that, I know that you have a criminal organization, so what do you plan on doing? That's a threat. Very interesting how Michael Franczese characterizes his whole interaction with Frank Dileo and others that were in Michael Jackson's camp as not being a threat, but yet you're telling them if my guy Norby Wathers is not involved in this deal, then I'm gonna go ahead and shut down the whole entire tour. Sounds like a threat to me, but I could be wrong. Anyway.
Go in there and you talk the way you talk. So as a result, Norby did work out a deal on that tour, the 1984 Victory Tour. Now let me tell you, after I spoke with Norby and I knew this is a legitimate guy. He was Michael Jackson's manager, promoter. He wasn't just any guy on the street. So, I had to think about how I was going to go into that meeting and approach him. Now, it wasn't going in and threatening him right off the bat, hey, you're going to do this or else. He's a legitimate guy. I didn't want to scare him. I didn't want him to be afraid of me.
Well, I don't know if Frank Dileo was actually scared of Michael Franczese, and there's a reason why he wasn't scared of him, but we're going to talk about that a little bit later on, I think, and I have a theory to why Michael Jackson got this guy to be his promoter and his manager once he severed ties with his dad in that regard. But we'll talk about that a little bit later on. All right?
And in the back of my mind, I said, hey, Michael Jackson's manager, promoter, maybe we can do something in the future. So I want to make this guy like me, and I want to make sure that he understands where I'm coming from, and that, maybe we walk out of there as friends and I get what I want. That was my thought process going in.
That was your thought process by going in and telling somebody that if my guy's not a part of this deal, this tour is not going to happen. I still remember that phrase. That sounds pretty intimidating, even if you're speaking softly from a mob boss, if they're coming and talking to you like that. My guy is going to be a part of this tour. He's going to be a part of it. Otherwise, it's not going to happen. But yet, he said he didn't intimidate Michael Jackson or intimidate Michael Jackson's people. He didn't threaten them. You guys make a choice for yourselves. What do you think about that? So, despite Michael Franczese saying he never threatened Michael Jackson or his family, let's see what he said in court about dealing with them in this particular incident back in 1984. This is a article from the LA Times entitled, Mobster Says He Aided Agent Wathers Bloom. It's about Norby Wathers and his partner, his business partner. And in it, Michael Franczese talks about his dealings in the Victory Tour with Michael Jackson and his father Joe, and among other things. Here's what he had to say. This is when he's being indicted in the late 90s and 89, as a matter of fact. This came out March 1989. So Michael Franczese says this. Under cross-examination in Chicago, Franczese said that he threatened the manager of the Jackson 5 singing group in an effort to get Wathers involved in a concert tour. Franczese is serving a 10 years prison sentence of racketeering and fraud charges in New York and Florida under questioning by U.S. Attorney Anton Valkas. Franczese said he was associated with New York's Columbo organized crime family from 1973 to 1986. Franczese said that sometimes in 1984 and 1985, Wathers told him he was joining Bloom in the sports agent business, and he asked him to participate in some way. Now listen to this part right here, because Franczese said that he didn't collect any money from any of these people. Wathers asked Franczese for $50,000 to back the business and promised Franczese would get a 25% share. Franczese testified. But whoa, didn't Michael Franczese said he didn't take one penny from Norby Wathers? But here he's saying when he was under oath that he actually gave him $50,000 and it was an investment for 25% of the share. So which one is it? Did he not take any money or did he take money? Which one is true? Anyway, Franczese said that he had known Wathers most of his life and that he was contacted by Wathers in the early 1980s to help persuade singer Dionne Warwick and a singing group, New Edition. It says here, the New Edition. Typo, it's just New Edition, to keep their business with Wathers, which is pretty much the same thing that he tried to do to the Jacksons. They went to their new agent after Joe was out the picture, and he tried to get them to sign under, and tried to get them to leave their current manager to be with them. The Jacksons wouldn't do it. So they went to him and they told him, we're both sharing their account and you have nothing to say about it, okay? So Wathers, loan managers of New Edition, $20,000 with the understanding Wathers would get 20% of their tour proceeds, Franczese said. I explained to them that I expected them to live up to their deal with Wathers and that the $20,000 was mine, Franczese said. Sounds like extortion to me. On another occasion, Franczese said he accompanied Wathers to California to talk with Warwick's manager, Joe Grant. The purpose was to make sure that the act, Dionne remained with Norby Wathers. Franczese testified, and the act stayed with Norby. So this is pretty much what they did to Dionne. What they did to Dionne Warwick and New Edition was the same thing that they tried to do to the Jacksons. And that's part of the reason why their whole entire dealings with the Jacksons got screwed up. Michael Jackson did not want to have anything to do with Norby Wathers. Could you blame him? This is the sort of thing that Norby Wathers, this man right here, a big level executive, manager within Hollywood in the music industry, who managed a lot of the black talent, he was extorting people. And according to Michael Franczese, using him and his crime family to do so. Quite a gem. Quite a gem he is. Well, despite Michael Francese's indirect threats, Michael Jackson's manager wasn't a nobody in the mafia world. Let me introduce you to who Frank Dileo actually was. I'm sure most of you guys watching here, the movie Insurrectionist, you've probably seen this movie. Very classic mafia film. I didn't cue it back, but I'm going to go ahead and do that right now.
Can't make any more deliveries.
What do you mean you can't make any more deliveries? You're gonna fuck everything up.
My dad said he's gonna kill me. Look.
Go on with it.
That it there, kid? No.
How about him?
Nope. That's the guy.
Yeah.
Excuse me.
Yeah?
You know this kid?
Yeah.
You know where he lives?
Yeah.
Deliver mail to his house?
Yeah.
Well, from now on, any letter from that school to that kid's house comes directly here. You understand?
Yeah.
If another letter from that school goes to that kid's house, in the fucking oven, you're gonna go ahead first.
That was it.
All right. So for those of you guys who've seen this scene right here, that's from the movie Goodfellas. The guy you saw playing Tuddy, the fat guy who was cursing out the mailman, that is Frank Dileo. That was Michael Jackson's manager. He was a recording executive over for Epic Records, today known as Sony Records, whose specialty, was in promotion. He met Michael Jackson back in 1984 after the success of the Thriller album and became his manager that year. Later, he became the executive producer for the full-length movie Moonwalker and promoted his Bad Tour as well as the Victory Tour with Michael Jackson's family. He was Michael Jackson's manager, of course, from 1984 to 1989. Then he became his manager again in 2009 before Michael's untimely death following that year. However, it's better to hear Frank himself on how he and Michael met. So I want you guys to listen to this video right here where he talks about where, in fact, him and Michael Jackson met and how they hooked up. Fair use.
Is this?
I'm known for thinking quick on my feet.
Is this? How did you get the job, incidentally?
I saw an ad in the Wall Street Journal. No, who's the comedian? You or me? No, actually, Terry, Michael and I built a working relationship when I was vice president of promotion at Epic Records. And through that, it developed on through the Thriller project. And one day while we were having lunch at the Beverly Hills Hotel, we were actually discussing the making of Thriller, the video. And just out of the clear blue, he asked me if I would manage it.
Right. And so from there it's gone to enormous success. And look, I see you're a cigar smoker.
Yes, I am.
Yes. Yeah, and a big cigar smoker, and we thought.
And that is how Frank Dileo, a.k.a. Tuddy from Goodfellas, and Michael Jackson started working together. And their working relationship was for many years. He was over at Epic Records. He was known as a dynamic promoter. Like he said, vice president of Epic Records as on their promotional team. But as well, he had connections to certain things that Michael Jackson actually needed. Before we talk about that, I need you guys to do us a favor by pressing the subscribe button and notification bell if you like this broadcast. Also, press the like button as well as the share button and share this broadcast with your folks. We're moving in this direction with this promotion of the movie Insurrectionist. This channel is growing, and we want to get more and more people to follow us and to check out some of our reviews, as well as our live streams and content that we're putting out there on YouTube and other platforms. You got that? Let's go ahead and get back to this live stream. So another reason that Michael actually hired Frank Dileo, in my humble opinion, is because of his affiliation with certain people in the underworld. And to his left of Michael Jackson, you see this picture right here. This gentleman, the large gentleman to his left, his name is William Big Billy Dileo, former soldier and future boss of the Boffolino crime family within Philadelphia, who was actually a friend of Frank Dileo, and he reportedly helped negotiate business deals on Michael Jackson's behalf with the Columbo family during the Victory Tour. But Frank Dileo was also a nephew of Bobby Llanelli, who was the leader of the Pittsburgh mob. And according to Dileo's journals, he intervened during the victory tour to ensure that Michael and his family were safe from the Columbos. Because Michael Jackson, of course, didn't want to work with Norby Wathers because of his reputation of questionable business tactics and his ties to organized crime. Although his father and Don King had no problem working with Norby, Michael wasn't having it. And since he was now on his own, he had more pull in this situation than Joe Jackson did. So he became an enemy of Norby Wathers. So since he saw what was happening before him, and besides having the reputation of being a promotional genius, Michael hired Dileo allegedly because of his organized crime connections and also because he was a brilliant marketing promoter over at Epic Records. The relationship lasted, like I said before, from 1984 to 1989. And afterwards, Michael Jackson rehired Frank Dileo to be his manager again in 2009 for the This Is It tour. But of course, Michael met his untimely demise. And this, of course, is the story of how the mob worked with, or in this case, worked for Michael Joseph Jackson. I'm going to save the Zoom link in the description box. And I'm going to open up for those of you who want to chime in and call. So I'll give you a couple of seconds. When I press the save button, now you can go ahead and refresh your page and look in the description box for anyone who wants to call in and give me their 2 cents about what they saw. So my question to you is this: do you think that Michael Jackson hired Frank Dileo because Frank Dileo was in fact connected to the mob and he needed protection? Or do you think he hired him because he was a marketing genius? What do you guys think about that? Go ahead and call me in. This is the Movie Insurrectionist. You can call in and give me your thoughts about that. I won't put you on video, but we can sit and we can talk. The link is in the description box. Go ahead and call in, please. The link is in the description box for the Zoom call. Give it a couple more seconds. If nobody is, I'm getting a couple of text messages. I'm getting a couple of text messages. The description, the description. Oh, I got somebody calling in right now. Let me go ahead and accept this. Let me see here.
I'm on the phone.
I have here F. Moore. What's on your mind?
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. What's on your mind?
Hey, what's happening, brother?
How you
Yeah, I
doing?
got a. I'm good. I'm gonna be brief because I got a tornado of a kid over here with me. But I
Always a
don't
problem.
think that it was. I don't think it was unintended that Mike is with joined with the FOI. I heard that his sis. I heard that Janet is with Farrakhan's son. Right now as we speak. I don't think any of that's an accident regardless of if the mob was, involved or not. I don't think any of it was an accident. I think I would have done the same if I was in their situation, knowing what Joe knows. Joe Jackson, knowing what he knew growing up. I think that might have been his call.
That's a very interesting theory you have there. That Joe Jackson may have told Michael to hire Frank Dileo. Because see, Michael Franczese in the video tries to downplay the fact that Frank Leo was connected. He wasn't a made man the way that he was, but he was connected to mobsters. And I think Michael Jackson knew that. And Michael Jackson wanted somebody who was competent, who can do the job, but also someone who can keep him safe and his family safe. And I think Frank DeLeo was the guy that could do that. Now you mentioned the FOI, and later on, Michael Jackson would hire the FOI because Michael, at one point, he did fire Frank DeLeo. I think he felt that their business relationship had ran its course and it was time for him to move on to someone else. And he went ahead at some point and he got the FOI to defend him because the mob has always had respect for the FOI. They didn't rip off Muhammad Ali. They stayed away from him. They protected Johnny Cochran. They protected other people as well as Michael Jackson. When Michael Jackson was going through that trial, he wanted to make sure that he was being protected by the folks. So because 1980s, as you saw within this video, that was the time where the FBI was actually closing in on the mafia. Michael Franczese, John Gotti, all of the remnants of that old guard of the mob was being dealt with by the federal government. And you don't see that kind of element of organized crime in the music industry today, because the music industry today is very corporate. It's very corporate ran. I mean, so you don't have people like you had back in that particular era. So I'll give you the last word.
Yeah, I mean, not to get off topic or anything, but FOI, I personally know a gentleman in FOI, and he's done security for even Puffy, so it's not uncommon for black entertainers, to use the FOI. I think I don't know much about what was the manager you were talking about connected to the mob.
Oh, the manager I was talking about. Which one?
The one that Michael Jackson hired previously to
Frank DeLeo. Frank DeLeo.
Fred. Yeah,
Yeah. The
see.
one who played
I didn't
Tuddy
know
in
much
Goodfellas.
about that.
Frank DeLeo.
Everything that I've learned about that is what I've learned listening to you. I didn't know much about that at all. I didn't know, but I can speak for black entertainers in general using FOI for management and security. It's not just Michael Jackson. A lot of entertainers do that. So I could see why they would do that, because you're dealing with somebody that has your best interest, and you don't have to worry about, like you said, someone double dipping, skimming, as they call it
Yeah.
in the mob,
Yeah.
skimming. And you don't have to worry about any of these backdoor deals being made behind your back or anything. Everything's, like you say, on the level. When you're dealing with the FOI, they have a sense of integrity, if you will.
Absolutely. And that was the thing with with Norby Wathers. Norby Wathers was making back. I mean, in what world, when somebody tells you, "I don't want your services," and you go behind their back and you talk to their manager and you basically threaten them, you basically coerce them into working with them. You know what I mean? Because they see your business dealings being so lucrative, which is what they did to Ron Weisner. That was the Jackson's manager after they got away from their father, from Joe Jackson, Ron Weisner. Norby Wathers basically coerced that man into working with him. You know, he coerced him to working with him, and they're making low key threats allegedly towards Michael Jackson, which I believe that's why Michael got he got Leo to I'm sorry, Frank Dileo to work for him for that reason. Not, because let's be real about something. Frank Dileo was not the only talented person in the entertainment industry when it came to promotion. Although he was the head of a big, huge, studio conglomerate, which is Epic, which eventually became Sony, but he wasn't the only guy. But considering the ties he had, I think with the mob, I think that was one of the reasons why Michael Jackson hired him. And like you said before, later on, because it almost seems like reading from some reports that Frank Dileo might have been trying to skim from the top, doing some of the same antics. And eventually Mike might have just decided to go along with the FOI to protect them, to make sure that things were being done on the level,
One could say it's part of their culture. It's part of mob culture to steal.
Yeah. 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 They weren't just doing it to Michael, like I told you in the report. They were doing it. They were doing it to New Edition. In LA Times they say the New Edition, but New Edition. They were doing the New Edition. They were doing the Dionne Warwick, and God knows who else. NWA was actually one of Norby Wathers, one of his clients as well at one point. So Norby Wathers must have been clicked in with Jerry Heller. He must have been clicked in with Jerry Heller.
What albums was this guy the manager for Michael? During what era? Like what time was this?
It was after Thriller, because he met him when they were making the Thriller album, but he wasn't under his management under Thriller. It was after Thriller, and it was so the Bad album. That's where they really worked together a lot. Was during the Bad era. So around like about like I said, 84 to 89. So Bad came out at about 87. When Bad came out, and he was the executive producer for Moonwalker. Remember that movie Moonwalker?
I was about to ask you, was he around for that? Yep.
Yeah, he was executive producer of that. And the guy was also an actor, because we saw him in Goodfellas. When I saw him, I said, wait a minute, that's Tuddy from Goodfellas. So that was the first thing I recognized him from, was from Goodfellas. So Frank Dileo did have himself a footprint in the industry. And like I said before, I think that Michael wanted to be with them because of that, and also because he had some connections in the underworld too. So real good stuff. Thank you for the call.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, see if we have anybody else. Anybody else that actually wants to chime in? Anybody else wants to chime in? Did I disconnect it? Wait a second. I'm going to go ahead and connect the Zoom call right back. I think we might have got disconnected accidentally. Let me see if I can get somebody else to call. Somebody else that wants to call in. I have to put in a new Zoom. Somebody else that actually wants to call. Another invite. Go back. We have here another invite. Anybody else want to call in? Talk a little bit about this. So the story of how the mob worked for Michael Jackson. Do you think that Michael hired Frank Dileo, Tuddy, from Goodfellas, to protect his interests, not only because he was a good promoter, but also because he had ties with the mob? And as our brother Fabian said, later on, he worked with the FOI, as some other people in the industry did. Give me your thoughts. Anybody else calling in? I got Delot that's calling in. Delot. What's going on, brother?
What's going on, man? Yeah, we always talk about this kind of stuff, man. Yeah, man. This is, I love the drops of lore. Hello,
Yeah, I'm here. I'm listening.
hello.
I'm here. I'm
Oh, okay,
listening.
okay.
What's on your mind? Hello, you still there?
Hello. Wait, hold a second. Sorry. Oh, wait, it's a lag, man. I gotta fix this. Let me get out and get back in.
All right. Yeah, you have some technical difficulties. Okay. No problem. He's having technical difficulties. My brother call us back. And when you call back, please put a shirt on. So somebody else, we have any other callers? Anybody other callers want to call in? So the story of how the mob worked he's back. Okay. All right.
Okay, I'm sorry. That was some weird technical glitch or whatever.
It's okay.
Anyway, yeah.
Damn, brother, put a
Got
shirt on. Go right ahead. Go right ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Hey, all right, man. Yeah, man. You're always doing like lore drop, man. So I appreciate that. I wouldn't put it past these guys. The mob. Just we all kind of understand like their nature. I wouldn't be surprised if there's kind of like a good cop bad cop situation.
Yeah.
Like bad cop over here, and then push you in that direction. Maybe they're you know, giving money to each other off of Mike, off of, off of the other guys. If the bad cop doesn't work, the good cop works, right?
Yeah.
So I wouldn't be surprised if that's the case. Um, and yeah, man, I didn't know that the Fruits of Islam were, you know, helping out with, big situations like that. So that's definitely good to know that they were, I knew about like, of course, Muhammad Ali,
Yes.
but yeah, man, it's good to know that they were looking out for all the other guys, all the other big guys. It's a shame. And this just kind of makes me suspect, more people who may have been involved in Michael Jackson's death. So
Hmm.
it's you know, I'm sure more will come out later. This guy that you had on, what's his name? Michael, the
Franczese.
mob guy. Yeah, yes,
Yeah,
yes,
Michael
yes.
Franczese. Yeah.
Yeah, man. Man, like this guy, I mean, does he hear himself? Like I didn't threaten him. Like, dude, you sound like a character out of a movie. Like you clearly threatened this man. Like, what are you what are you saying? I guess maybe he's just doing it for like the content or whatever. But it's like you clear anyway. Yeah, man. Like he's an interesting character. Uh, yeah, it's anyway. It's good lore drop, man. I appreciate the extra information.
Michael Franczese, he's been on the internet for a little while now. And that's kind of the interesting thing that we see here is that you got guys who are former mob guys, him and Sammy the Bull, both of them are on the internet, and they have YouTube channels giving those stories about their life, their time in the mob. And Michael Franczese has some very interesting opinions. He has a lot of mob stories about people that he's connected with over the years. I didn't have any idea that he was connected to Michael Jackson until recently. But like you said, I mean, in what world do you tell someone that this person or that person is going to be involved in this deal? If you have a business deal, you have the right to decide who you want to do business with. If I tell, if I decide I'm not going to do business with you anymore, I'm severing ties with you, I'm gonna pay you what I owe you, but then we're done. And then a third party comes in and says, well, it's like an episode of Breaking Bad. We're done. I say that. I mean,
Yeah, exactly.
That's always talking. At that point, you are threatening someone. You are threatening someone by telling them that, well, listen, if he's not a part of this tour is not going to happen. What do you mean it's not going to happen? What's going to? I mean, how are you going to stop it from happening? What are you going to do? Don't worry about what we're going to do. It's not going to happen. That's all you need to know. It's not going to happen. You want to break my client's legs? I can't tell you all that. Well, it sounds like to me that you're threatening us, and this is a legitimate organization, so I'm gonna have to deal with this accordingly, because it sounds like to me you're threatening us, But Michael Franczese is a very interesting guy. He has a lot of stories. I've heard him say, some very questionable things involving Black folks, and what he said is very interesting, Michael Franczese. So if you ever heard his channel, so I'll let you have the last word, brother.
Yeah, man. Yeah, he sounds like an interesting guy. I mean, he's done a lot of interesting stuff. Probably a lot of dangerous, illegal stuff. So I mean, that makes for an interesting guy.
Yeah.
But like I said, man, great lore drop. Hope to see more of it, which I will. You've been doing this a minute now, so yeah, man. Looking forward to the next one.
Thank you. I appreciate that, brother. Thanks a lot.
Oh yeah.
All right. Do we have anybody else? Anyone else want to call in and give me your 2 cents on the story of how the mob worked for Michael Jackson? Anyone else? Within description box is the link. You can contact me on Zoom. We can talk about this on the Zoom call. Anyone else? If I don't have any other callers, I think I'm going to wrap this up for tonight. If I don't have any other callers, then anyone else want to call in and provide their perspective on this matter? I'm going to wrap it up. I think that's about it. I'm not getting any more calls. So I think I'm going to wrap this up for today. I appreciate the 2 brothers who called in today. We are continuously moving on with this. This is the Movie Insurrectionist, and we're going to keep on growing this channel. But in the meantime, I want to thank you and thank everybody else that participated in this conversation, who listened, and those of you who will listen after this live stream is over. So this includes this edition of the Movie Insurrectionist. I am your host, Rashad. Please press that subscribe button and notification bell for upcoming reviews, shorts, and live streams. Like the video and share it with your friends, and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, and X. And remember, theatrical release will never be televised. Later.